14, 15. Well done, well done. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Our rest time starts now. Alright. 2 more sets. 2 more sets. If you're here this far, definitely you're killing that day. Definitely you are killing your day. Right, there we go. Time's up. Time's up. All right, let's go. Set number 2. Set number 2. Set number 2. 1, 2, 3, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done, well done. Our rest time starts now. 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 Could use that time to tie my shoes. All right, there we go. 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds. And time's up. Last set, also the last set of the day. I know, yes, we conquered, we made it, we came this far. You're a winner today. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done, well done. If you did that with me, you did an amazing job. Thank you for joining me here at Tizi Nyumbani. My name is Evelyn Owala of Vival Health and Fitness. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. But for now, go out there and kill your day because you made it this far. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Introducing Ushindi Cream Bar Soap. Ushindi Cream Bar Soap with Oxy Bright removes stains effortlessly and brightens colors. Available in 1 kilogram and 800 gram bars and 175 gram tablets. Also available in all your favorite variants. Ushindi, a quality product from Pwani Oils.
Make is the bride.
Get 500 MB free kila siku and never miss a moment.
From far with you. I even gifted you a magnificent house. Rosa, it's the thought that counts. Please help me.
When it comes to fever, you need to be both. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in 15 minutes and is gentle on the tummy. Panadol Baby and Infant, tough on fever, gentle on your child.
At the hashtag eating life with a big spoon. Ukiwa umekaa kwa gari madu. Jana ukanitumia message ati nikukopese ngiri 5. Na masimu unapiga mingi ukinitafuta kama selling. ukipiga serehe nilikuwa na wewe.
To get Serehe by Abuju Buju, dial star 811 star 935 hash. Skiza, non-nation.
You know what it is, man. Yeah. Na nipo ndani ya Kwetu Mix na hapa tuko NTV. Yo, sibanduke hapo I say.
The #1 source of entertainment news, what's hot and what's not.
This is NTV.
Greetings and salutations, East Africa, and welcome to another week of interrogating issues that affect your day-to-day here on Your World. Now, speaking of which, on this last Monday of March, we shed light on parenting, especially now that our children are on school holiday, which has coincided with yet another phase of lockdowns in some parts of the country. Though it might feel like last year is playing out once again, we all can attest that we have more skills and perhaps information to handle the parenting of our children within a pandemic. However, different dynamics keep playing out, and this morning we would like to revisit this conversation and see how we are doing and what we can do better to shepherd our children in these uncertain times. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is Your World. The school holidays are here with us, and with our children back at home, is it time to have that talk on sexuality? Gadget addiction is now overtaking substance addiction. Just what is the impact of technological advancements to family time? Should the minimum age of sexual consent be reduced from 18 to 16 years? Well, we'll talk more about that in a moment. Elsewhere, South Africa farmers battle a scourge of avocado thieves stealing more than a ton's worth of produce. Again, thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I mentioned today, we are revisiting that conversation on parenting, and especially now that our children are back home with us for a, elongated period of time. And now with the pandemic also giving us another phase of lockdowns in some counties, we have some pertinent issues that we would like to address. So our question of the day to you is, how do you intend to keep your children busy during this school holiday season? How do you intend to keep your children busy during this school holiday season? Talk to us. That hashtag is New Normal on our social media platforms. And remember, you can also reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. Well, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world. As you know, those numbers are increasing now more than ever as the world faces different phases of this pandemic. And globally this morning, that number stands at 127,771,302 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 102,964,582 have recovered from the same, and unfortunately 7,939 people have succumbed to COVID-19. Now, in the country, that number this morning stands at 130,214 people confirmed to have contracted COVID-19, and out of that number, 91,754 have recovered. And unfortunately, in the country, we have lost 2,117 Kenyans to COVID-19. And still on COVID-19 in the country, and President Uhuru Kenyatta and his wife Margaret received their first COVID-19 vaccination shot last week. And President Kenyatta received his vaccination shortly after announcing new lockdown measures in Nairobi and nearby counties as the country tries to control its third wave of COVID-19 infections. Kenya on Friday placed Nairobi, Kiambu, Kajiado, Machakos and Nakuru, all declared disease-infected counties, under partial lockdown and closed schools and bars in those areas as the country faces a deadly third wave of COVID-19. In a national address, President Uhuru Kenyatta warned emergency measures were required to curb the highest rates of coronavirus infection seen in Kenya since the pandemic began a year ago. Hospital admissions have surged to 52% in the past 2 weeks, while the rate of positive tests hovers around 20%, a tenfold increase since January. The president also placed those counties under fresh restrictions effective midnight Friday, which include a new curfew time of 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. to try and curb the spread. Across the borders now, and visitors to the Kigali Genocide Memorial react after the publication of a report by historians on France's role in the 1994 atrocity. The report concluded there had been a failure on the part of France under former leader François Mitterrand, though no complicity in the genocide that saw around 800,000 people slaughtered, mainly from the ethnic Tutsi minority.
The reports from France will clear the rumors that say that France had not participated in the genocide. We were afraid to go to France to follow all activities from France because they ignore what they did to support people who chose to participate in genocide. But now if they are accepting, it means that friends are going to be our friends like that.
Elsewhere, Ivorian authorities announced that 38 trafficking victims from Burkina Faso, 18 minors and 20 adults will be deported from Ivory Coast to their country of origin in the next few days. They were intercepted while being transported to work in a gold mine in Aboisso in southeastern Ivory Coast. The Ivorian Minister of Women, Family and Children said it is a relentless fight that Ivory Coast is leading to fight against child labor, both at the national national and cross-border levels and would like this to be known. The police commissioner and deputy director of the fight against child trafficking and juvenile delinquency added that in the year 2020 they had rescued 1,093 children. In South Africa, and farmers in the northern part of the country are battling a scourge of organized avocado thieves who can steal more than a ton's worth of produce in a single night, costing them millions of dollars. The nutrient-rich fruits demand globally has boomed, resulting in the need for armed security and fencing to keep this unlikely commodity safe.
In the past, it generally tended to be a situation where people would come in, steal the fruit and sell it next to the road. Nowadays, it's getting washed, packed into proper boxes, shipped with proper transport into proper markets and organized markets even.
Because we know when they come one day, they come. And you'll cry when 2 tons are gone. If that penalty can be hard to people who are taking things unconditionally, then we'll be safe. But as long as the penalty it's light, everybody will come to you and do whatever you want to do. So that it must come from the government.
The more fruit we need to pack, the more capacity we need at the pack house, the more people we need to employ. And in that way, having a risk such as avocado fruit theft directly affects these people in terms.
Back in the country, and perhaps one of the issues we'll be focusing on this morning, even as we talk about the intricacies of parenting, especially now that our children are back home with us on the school holidays. Should the minimum age of sexual consent be reduced from 18 to 16 years old? Well, the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection and the National Gender and Equality Commission say a big, emphatic no. This is backed by the findings of a report where various stakeholders contributed to a study on the same. Anita Nkonge reports on the emotive issue, with other countries such as Nigeria having as low an age of consent as 11 years old.
It is ordinarily a topic that elicits nerves, one whose sensitivity cannot be underestimated. Should the age of sexual consent be lowered to 16 years old? In 2019, 3 judges at the Court of Appeal ruled that it was high time the country considered a review of the Sexual Offences Act following a 15-year sentence handed to a man who defiled a 17-year-old girl and left her pregnant.
They want these children who are in school, who wear uniform, who live in their parents' homes, they want us to give them that license. Why would we, as a sane government, say that our children should be allowed to have consensual sexual activity when they should be in school?
We can never be mad enough to support that kind of nonsense of lowering the consent age.
Consent is generally defined as when one person gives permission to another to do something. The Sexual Offences Act Section 42 states the same and further stipulates the minimum age of consent is 18 years old. The National Gender and Equality Commission, in its recently launched report, Minimum Age of Consent for Sex Addressing the Dilemma, put together in collaboration with Plan International Kenya, recommended that the minimum legal age of consent should remain unchanged.
Children are not well developed physically, psychologically, and socially before the age of 18 years for them to consent to matters of sex. Children exposed to sexual activities before age 18 are more likely to suffer from health complications and long-term mental and physical health challenges
Having consulted with stakeholders from all over the country, both religious leaders, members of the civil society and government representatives, as well as children, that we shouldn't lower the age of consent for sex.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Protection holds the same view, adding that after 15 years of discussion around the matter, the Cabinet has approved the Children's Bill of 2020 and it is now to be tabled in Parliament this year.
Wale jamaa wanasemanga huyu mrembo ameiva, huyu nilimwona kama ni mama mzee, hiyo mtakutana na sheria. Measures should also be put in place to mitigate the predicaments where young boys are imprisoned for engaging in sexual activities with underage girls, because all of them are children and below the age of consent.
The age of sexual consent in various other jurisdictions vary. In Nigeria, it is 11 years old, Angola 12, Malawi 14, and USA 16 years old are legally allowed to have sex. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
Quite an emotive issue, and all the parents in the room, and I'm sure those at home are thinking, what are you talking about? Well, we'll talk about the intricacies of the same even as we unpack the role of parenting, especially now that our children are back home with us and it looks like the lockdowns are back with us, and the dynamics of parenting are also getting a little bit more complex just when we were thinking we're going back to normal living. And to help us understand this conversation further is Dr. Rose Misati, who is with me in studio. She is a parenting and relationship coach. We are also joined in the other studio by Lizzie Wanyoke, who is an educationist, and you know her also as a proprietor of NIBS College. We are also joined virtually by Shalom Munyiri, who is a family life coach, and of course Chris Otieno, who is a facilitator of Boys to Men program, and he'll be telling us more about it in a moment. Thank you all for joining us on this conversation, and I'm curious to know, and I'll start off with you, Dr. Misati, what is your thinking around lowering that age of consent?
Mine is also an emphatic no, because any child under 18, they may physically look like they have matured, but mentally, emotionally, physically and socially, they are not ready to deal with the outcome of sex. So it's up to us as adults, as parents, to protect these children. Yes.
Lizzie, you work with the adults, or rather the adolescents stroke young adults. What is your thinking around this?
Hey, I am appalled to hear that some countries will allow even 11 years. I have taught in high schools and also now in colleges, and anybody under the age of 18 is still not mature enough to engage in sex or even in marriage. So I still feel that we should continue, maintain the age 18. Maybe that way we'll be able to safeguard the lives of our young children.
All right. And from where you sit, Chris, what is your thinking about the same?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. My thinking about the same is emphatic, no. But in all our teachings, what we do, we teach the children, the boys who grow into men, on the importance of sexuality in their life. Sex is about procreation. Sex has a beauty in it, and that you get to a certain age where you make your own decisions. And these decisions must be guided from the point of parental guidance. Through your stages of growth, how do we bring you into the knowledge of sexuality, basing strictly on the fact that you will get to an age where you will make your own decisions. But then as parents, it is important for us to determine. So I would like to say that from my perspective, where I teach the boys, is an emphatic no lowering that age. But remember that it must be guided through the stages so that the boys understand the beauty of sexuality in their entire life.
And for you, Shalom, I know you work a lot, especially with the children, to hear that there are some countries that allow 11-year-olds to engage in sexual activity. Your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, like everybody else is saying, an emphatic no, because I do not think they're ready, especially to deal with the consequences. You know, I mean, sex may be fun to have. I mean, there could be people, and maybe what is informing some of those proposals is that they're already having sex anyway. But I don't think they're ready to deal with the consequences. And that's what we don't talk about enough of. The kids' brains, they're not ready yet to deal with what comes after we have had sex. So I think absolutely not. I mean, it needs, even those countries that are doing it need to repeal it and just get rid of such laws and policies, yeah.
Okay, let's delve further into this, because the question is, they know it's happening, they are engaging in it. So how do we guide them? Because I had everyone talk about guidance is important. I'll start off with you, Dr. Misati. Sexuality and sexual education, something that the African society especially tiptoes around. So how do we handle it?
I would like to say, for starters, that parents are the primary educators of their children when it comes to matters sexuality. So it's important for parents to begin engaging with children from a very early age. I normally give a guide just by saying maturity is different, but by the ages of 3 to 4, a child needs to know their private parts. They need to know that nobody should touch them, nobody should see them, nobody should lick them. And that even when the parents are bathing the children, they should bathe them in private, even if they are siblings, separately. And the children need to know that when they need to be taught how to change themselves, to dress up, and they need to be taught that as much as nobody should see their private parts, they should also not see the private parts of another person. By the time they get to 6, 7 years, the parts need to be named by name, not by using of pseudonyms, nicknames, specifically, you know, by name. And by 7 years, they need to know what sex is. It is better to give more information too early, because the child will pick that which is necessary and leave out the rest, other than giving too little, too late. Because if we leave a vacuum, somebody is going to fill that vacuum, and you may not share values. Anytime a child asks questions, a parent should answer honestly, truthfully, and factually. And that is actually a teachable moment. So you keep on building into it. You don't wait until teenage and then you're bringing this big conversation, because by that time, the child will be shy because they know a little bit. So they will be shy, and it's very difficult for the parent to get through when they wait until it's too late. The school, the church, and society should supplement, or rather complement, can I say complement, that which the parent has already communicated at home. The unfortunate thing is that because of our culture and socialization, many parents, as you said correctly, tiptoe around this topic. So we hope and trust that the church, the school, society, peers, unfortunately do it, and what they communicate to the children is also what they have probably heard or watched somewhere that is not in line with the values. Yes.
All right. Now, Shalom, I know you work within the church setting, and this is the one institution that has been said to be very shy about talking matters sexuality or even sexual education. And in the same guidance term that we are using here, so I'm talking to my 7-year-old. What am I telling him sex is?
First and foremost, we get guidance from the Bible as far as sex is good is concerned. It's something that was God ordained. It was created for the fathering of family, you know, I mean, in terms of multiplying. And when I teach about sex, I basically like joking about this, that Genesis 1, I think 27, 28 says, go have sex. Because that's where God says, go ye forth and multiply. And I think the game plan for God, for man, was to have sex. And therefore, it's an enjoyable thing. Now, the thing that we talk about a lot is that it should be done in the context of marriage. But what we don't talk about is what makes people then have sex outside of marriage. We like pushing the agenda of it has to be done in the context of marriage, great. But we don't tell the children how they can avoid not having it outside of marriage. So to a 7-year-old, first and foremost, they need to understand that part, that it's not for them. It is not for 7-year-olds. There's no example in the Bible where a 7-year-old actually had sex. But then there's a place where teenagers then had sex. And we say that somebody like Mary, for instance, was a teenager when she was getting Jesus. Those are the things we need to explain in reality. Then the other thing that we don't talk enough of is consequences
of wrong sexual decisions made by characters in the Bible. So I feel like the Bible is rich in terms of examples, but we already are shy. You know, the Bible refers to sex, you know, he slept. It's in confusing language to our children. And I feel our role is to help them break that down and make it mean something to them.
Okay, let's talk about the boys here. Chris, you work with a lot of them, even as you facilitate the Boys to Men program. So how do you explain to the boys, okay, fine, you're of a certain age, the other gender is attractive, but this is not for you?
Let's appreciate one thing. No child is born with instructions. So these children must be taken through a process of instruction. So how do we bring in this gender or sexuality topic to the boys that we mentor through the process? What we do, number one, is to help them define themselves. Who am I? Who am I in terms of when am I ready? What is my physics? Sorry. Who are my friends? And who are my parents? Now, we know very well that in the current world, there's a lot of competition that is being given to parenthood. From, for example, children's access to the internet. And the internet will give them what they type in the message or in the search engine, right? So we say that we will teach our children, we will mentor our children in our program Boys to Men and Transform Nations around their identity in this topic. And number one, like I said, when do I get ready for this particular indulgence? What is my physique like, and when will my physique change? And what will the physique of the person in the opposite sex change? And what will that have the effect on me? Then my friends, what is my behavior? What should be my behavior around my friends? If I see a friendship or a group of friends who are not positively influencing my destiny or my behavior, then what tips do we give them around changing their behaviors around their friends, or also even themselves influencing their friends around that sexual behavior? For the parents, we say to the parents, it is important to be positive around this topic of sexuality. And the positivity here includes what the good doctor said, but age-relevant discussion. We don't want to bombard these children with some big names at a tender age, because they could use that in their amongst their friends and influence them negatively. So we bring sexuality around that context of who am I, when do I get ready, what is my physics changes, and what is my parents and my friends play around the sexuality. And like the other good lady has said, it's also important, we also talked about the consequences of sexuality, right? If you get yourself involved in wrong sexuality, even at the age of young adults, what are the consequences? Are you able to bear them? And we say to them, you can only bear these once you are ready in terms of character, once you bring in God-fearing, and once you have the ability to be able to respond to the consequences that come along with you indulging yourself in sexuality. And this is passed around the point that all children are not born with instructions. This must be instructed along their growth process.
Okay.
Development stages.
Now, Lizzie, again, I come back to you. Dealing with adolescents, young adults, they are at a time where they think this is a fun thing to engage in. And the question is, when did the curiosity heighten to what it is we're seeing today, which is leading to the early marriages or rather sexual intercourse so early in life?
By the time the young adults enter into college, they have already gone through high school. And during that time, when they're in high school, they already have learned a lot. Most of them are caged, you know, they're in boarding schools, then after that they are home, and so there are some restrictions mostly when they are in high schools. So when they come to college, things get much different because they have the freedom, they can walk around, they now close to boys, their mother is not looking, their father is not, they are questioning. So it becomes very difficult for them to adapt to that situation. So we have to find ways of at least to warn them right from the time they join college. And we normally do that. I normally call them, all of them, in all the new students, and try to talk to them and to tell them about now that you are free. There are those things that you have to continue. When you are in high school, you are this much. When you are now in college or university, you have to change your attitude. It can get very difficult because naturally, you see, this is the stage where most of them even get permanent boyfriends. Some of them end up in marriage, others don't. And some of them still get pregnant during this time, more than they do in high schools. So it is very, very difficult for them, especially the ones that were in boarding schools. I know they were under very strict parenting. So when they come to college, that freedom really bothers them because they have been somehow advised by their parents to know what to do and what not to do. Threatened if you get pregnant, you don't come back home. So they are really, really confused at this particular time because now they are now between 19 and 18, but still seeing this freedom all of a sudden it is there. It is there, and the parents are not there. It really confuses some. And this is the time some of them, although half of them will have certain drugs when they were in high school, when they come to college, the weak ones will still be influenced, even at that level, either in open sex or in drugs or in, just missing classes if we are not careful as an institution. So it is, I have found it to be the most difficult part of a growing up child when they come from the restrictions of home to this kind of a lot of freedom. And they have a serious problem from there, but you have to keep on coaching. But I can still add that it starts from the parenting. The parenting from when they were young is very, very important. Because what they learned from the parents, it will never go away from. It will still be with them. They'll still know, oh, my parents used to tell me this, my parents used to warn me against this. So I always insist that permanent parenting comes from the time this kid is growing up, so that they know what is bad and what is good, especially when it comes to sexuality.
Okay, so we're talking about restrictions of it to freedom, and hence now all this exploration that we're seeing, and unfortunately the results of the same, which is early pregnancies amongst other vices. But hey, we will get back into the details of the same, even as we learn how as parents we can help these children navigate these parameters. And speaking of which, we had asked you on our question of the day, how do you intend to keep your children busy during this cool holiday season? Because as they say, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So parents, what do you have up your sleeves to keep them busy? We have a Hustlers Nation who says, come together as a family and train together. Find a workout on the internet or on demand on your TV. Make training a family activity. Think outside the box and get inventive with what's around you. Kicking or throwing a ball against a wall might be an option. If your children can't play their specific sports, they could choose other activities to cross-train, or that may develop similar skills. We hear you. Thank you. Theuri says, managing the kitchen garden responsibility. Very true. And they also learn the value of hard work. Daniel Juma says, with the rise in plastic parenting, I don't think the parents have any plans for them. They are running around the estate screaming and being nuisances to everyone and anyone working from home. Daniel, thank you for sharing that. Kibunja says, teach them civic education. Please elaborate more on this even as we continue with this conversation. Albert Abanes Nyamera says, every evening we dine and study the Bible together. This will help them cultivate godly values that will help them to deal with bad influences. We also watch cartoons together, play together, and help them in reading and writing. Albert, you're one involved parent, clearly. Stephen Williams here with a last comment for now. The problem is that I'm locked here in Nairobi and they are in Kisii. So God will care for them. Stephen, we hear you, but I'm sure wherever they are, there is a guardian who can actually help shepherd them during this time that you are separated from them. Remember, that hashtag is new normal. And if you'd like to reach us using our phone numbers, they are at the bottom of your screen for your questions or comments. And I'll come back to you, Dr. Misati. We've talked about sexuality, the curiosity, the restrictions, the freedom therein. And these are part and parcel of life. So we get to a point where they are also, you know, curious about relationships. They are back on holiday. They have time for the boy. They have time for the girl. How do you navigate relationships with these tender minds?
First of all, let me say that sexual desire is God-given. So we expect them to have sexual desire. In fact, I usually tell my children, who are teenagers now, that the day you have your first crush, we need to celebrate. Because it means you're maturing normally. It intensified now because of exposure to internet, and you know, the world has become a global village. So probably you would say that the children face much more pressure, you know, and a lot of exposure. So it's important to let them know that it's normal, that we were created to be attracted, you know, to the opposite sex. So when you feel attracted, that's okay. And also to comment on something that has just come to my mind, you know, when we talk about letting them have sex early before 18 because of, you know, maybe the heightened sexual desire, what we are failing to realize, it's not just about sex, it's about the skills, delayed gratification. I always joke with my kids that if I was given a choice, I would want to sit at home, eat chocolate, and watch TV the whole day. But I can't. I have to wake up early and go to work. So we need to teach them that the desires will come, but then you need to engage your thinking brain. Is it the right thing at that time? Because every choice has consequences. So we need to let them know that even as you get attracted, it doesn't mean that the person you are attracted to, you get into a relationship and you have sex. Boundaries have to be there. Above and beyond everything, you need to respect yourself and have priorities. That way you can say no to the good because you have said yes to the best. Because right now you're in school. What is your priority? To do your very best so that you can have a career, you can have something. Relationships will come. Sex is not an emergency. Getting into a relationship, getting married is not an emergency. It's going to come at the right time, and then you will enjoy it within the confines of maturity, where you have made a choice to get into it, not because of pressure.
Now, Chris, that sounds like the ideal situation, but we know especially the teenagers, they are revving up with hormones, and most often than not, you will find the boys are the aggressors. They're the ones who will go to pursue the girls, and of course the girls feel, oh, so appreciated because somebody has noticed them. So how do you tell this boy or advise him to navigate relationships, or when it's good for him or when it's not?
We are very strategic on how we teach the boys around this topic of sexuality. And we teach them around temptations being very much abound. And we teach them how to win this war on temptations. Just like the good doctor has said, it's very natural. They come at a particular age. Sometimes they're so strong, and what we need to do as parents is to teach them how to win this war, right? So number one thing we do, we teach them how to make up their minds around sexuality. And teaching them how to make up their minds is getting to know the right choices, having the right choices, having a wide array of choices, but choosing or making a choice on the target, on what is not good at that particular age. We also teach them how to refuse, have the strength to run away from a temptation. The temptation is here. It is right here. It has these consequences. These consequences are not very good for me. So how do I run away from this? It's a tactical thing. It's a tactical thought process that must also be reflected in the body and the mind where I say no to it. Then we also teach them how to repent. Right? Turn from bad habits. Reconcile with yourself. This is a bad habit. This is not something I need to do. I need to run away from this. So I need to turn from this bad habit, the habit of thinking around sexuality, the habit of wanting to get myself involved in sexuality, or even getting myself in sexuality. It's not right that I need to run away from it. And relate. We teach them how to get accountability partners, all right? You must have a group of persons or people you can talk to. And the best people to talk to around here is parents. And we are saying to our parents, you know, either Man Enough program or educational dads, that it is good to have these very clear lines of communication with your children, where when you speak to them from an authenticated perspective, right? They are able to believe what you're saying because they are able to relate with what you say. And what you're saying is derived from personal experiences. When I was your age, these were my experiences. I know those are long times ago, but the current situation of the world is like this. So relate the current situation to your own self and the consequences of what you're about to do, and if run away from it and make a decision away from that. Then reflect. When you're confronted with this, reflect. Sit down and reflect. Ask yourself the right questions. This is not right for me. Is it? This is not good for me, is it? And when the answers are much more on the no side, then we expect you to run away from it, completely run away from it. Then remember, there are truths that we teach the boys to remember, the consequences of your actions. This must be remembered, the teachings that we've given to you. This should be remembered. It's important that that get remembered. And the point of resolving and refusing and repenting, there are points that are important for these boys to remember. Then we come to the parents too, and we tell the parent, right? One of the wars that our children fight, or one of the challenges of masculinity or femininity is sexuality. On the part of the lady, sexuality should be more like an influential, should be used positively. And for the boy, sexuality is a temptation that can lead you to the negative, to the trap of masculinity. So how do you wade? How do you sail? How do you sail your boat on these seas of sex to enable you get out of the high seas and get to the calm seas is pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a drive from so many directions that we try to push to our boys, to our young adults, and the others, so that they get this lesson right and they're equipped with the right skills and abilities to wade this war pretty right when they are confronted at that particular time.
Okay, now, Shalom, Dr. Misati mentioned that there is a need to celebrate the fact that they get a crush, which means they're developing normally. Some of us grew up and we were told, dare you look at a boy. That is when you will meet death. So now, how do you reconcile the fact that the dynamics of life have changed and it's okay to have a crush, to have a relationship when you're a bit younger than it was back then? How do you navigate these waters?
You know, I like what Dr. Misati said about demystifying this to our children. If you start the conversations very early on, then your children are able to connect with you. Because crushes right now are happening as early as that 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds is having crushes within the school setting. And so parents from the get-go, from that age of 0, start communicating with your child such that by the time they're 7, they're free to come to you with their issues, and they're free to come to you with their adventures. Because I'm hearing more and more often of young boys of about 10 proposing to girls who are about 8 years old, and they are watching these things and imitating what they see. So if they're imitating, then what we need to do is first and foremost be present enough in their lives to understand when they're just role-playing and when they are, just actually having a crush. Then another reason why children are having crushes, and we need to have these conversations with them, is because of family structure. They are seeing their parents breaking up and forming new relationships with other people. So we have lots of blended families. And you see, parents at that point in time are able to explain to their children, sorry, it couldn't work out with mom or it couldn't work out with dad, but I still love you as a child, and I also love this new person. And so the more children are seeing adults in their lives sharing this love and this crush, the earlier they're starting to imitate it. So I think the key here is actually to walk with your child along the way. When they have a crush, help them understand what's going on. Help them understand that this may not necessarily be a permanent situation. They will break up soon enough. They will find somebody else that they like a little bit better, but walk with them along the way, because at 7, they don't get hurt as badly as they get hurt at 14 when they're crushed just like somebody else. So be there to also help them manage their emotions, to understand what's going on in them. Why are they feeling the things that they're feeling? What are they going to do about this? How far can they take a crush? What do I do with this boyfriend? I mean, mom, you kiss your boyfriend. Why can't I kiss mine? Help them understand at their level what they need to understand about their relationship they're having as a child. Yeah, so that's what I'd say. Walk with them and relate with them.
Now, as I listen to all of you, I hear that the dynamics of parenting have totally changed. Gone are the days where you say, do not do it because I said so. You've got to shepherd with instruction and counsel. Speaking of which, Lizzie, these children are now, exploring the world, exploring themselves. They have freedom in their hands. What's the impact of social media and peer pressure, especially in the adolescent and young adults?
Yeah, that is the peer pressure is one of the leading aspects of these young people getting lost, peer pressure, because you want to be seen like you are there, you are just like them. At the same time, they have been watching videos on all sorts of dancing. You know, when they get this freedom, they want as much as possible to imitate what they see on TV. So much so. Now, so if you are in the wrong group, you will have plenty of it. It's all over. It's all over. And that is why we tell them that your life is very, very, very personal. Your life is personal. And again, I would also advise the parents, as these kids move from high school to college, have a sitting with them. At least tell them something what to expect. Because when you let them just go like that, you are going to college there, it shows that you have been released to freedom. I love those parents who normally bring their young adults to college. They come with them just like they are joining high school. And telling them this is a different kind of situation. So a parent still, like we say, the parent still is number one. Because I have told parents that they don't expect me to change their young adults when they are 19, when they are 20. They should have taught them the basic things when they were young. Otherwise, if they just come and then they expect me to teach them this, tell them getting pregnant is not okay, or all what the parents is supposed to have done when at home. So yeah, so it becomes very difficult. But we advise them, we keep on talking to them, we don't get tired of talking to them and tell them what to expect, the different types of people from all over the country they are going to meet. And that freedom is the worst, that some of them have never had it. So they think having freedom is having boyfriends. And I like that person who said that a crush is not, it's normal. In fact, I tell my students, if you have never had one, then there's something wrong with you. So that is to make them understand it is okay, but how do I handle? What are the consequences? Now I'm in college. What did I come here to do? Do I want to complete college, or do I want to become a parent, or do I want to become a father in between? So we have to really work with them and find and at least enforce what the parents may have taught them, to tell them when you go out there, you are out there and you are not going to be there. It's up to you. So what are you supposed to do?
All right. So even as we try to navigate this conversation, of course, we've had a very, very busy last week around matters, sexuality, gender-based violence, and all that conversation. And the question always was, how should we teach our boys and girls to respect each other and to also understand that when one says no, the other person should back off? Let me go to the person who deals with the boys, Chris. How do we teach our boys to respect women?
Now, this is a parent-driven discussion, at the same time a mentor-driven discussion. We say that men have what we call a code of honor. There is a particular way unto which masculinity ought to subscribe. For example, you got to be courageous, you got to be loyal, you got to be of service, you got to be of integrity, and you got to be knowledgeable. Now, in integrity, we teach them moral integrity. And moral integrity basically includes, how do I conduct myself around people? What will people say in my presence or even in my absence? That is morality. Now, morality here, we will talk about who is a girl, who is a teen girl, who is a lady, and who's a woman, and who's my mother. What is it from me? What is expected from me to this category of persons? One of the things expected from me is respect. I want to respect the person's ideas. I want to respect the person's decisions. And I ought to have my presentation around these persons be respected or be appreciated by that particular person. And we say to our boys, When a girl says no, you respect the word that has come from the girl and back off in that she has said no. If you go around to twist the meaning of no to mean something else, then you are liable to consequences. And these consequences are not, for example, what you would want to live with, or what your father or your parents would like to live with, or even the society around you would like to, because sometimes this comes back to you as shame. They also come back to you as a trap. And these traps take forever to get out of, and you will need to be guided on how to get out of these traps. So we teach them to be respectful and to be knowledgeable around the discussions that go on between the two of them, and when to say no and when to say yes, and when you say no means no, and when you say yes means no. But the thing here is respect and responsibility.
All right, now we'll talk more about that particular point right after the short break here on Your World. And remember, our question of the day to you this morning, even as we try to understand the parenting dynamics, especially now that the children are back home with us, is how do you intend to keep your children busy during this school holiday season? How do you intend to keep your children busy during this cool holiday season? Talk to us. That hashtag is New Normal, and you are welcome to call us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. We'll be right back.
Current financial year, the taxpayer is spending about 119 billion shillings in servicing public sector pension liabilities.
Theirs is a pay-as-you-go. It's non-contributory, and that's why you find there's a pension crisis as far as the government's employees are concerned.
The government is finally migrating civil servants from a defined benefits pension scheme to a contributory scheme.
In January, we have about 384, which basically we're talking about almost 400,000 civil servants who have moved in.
What does this mean for you as a civil servant?
15%, some would argue, is relatively high if you look at the industry standards, where I think typically we're looking at 7.5% from the employee and 7.5% being matched by the employer.
Join us in the next edition of Business Redefined as we discuss the public service superannuation scheme.
The Age, your freely quarterly magazine found in the Business Daily, is back this March, discussing business and sustainability. Can companies preserve cash and grow earnings in this business setup while ensuring minimal harm to the environment, protecting communities and consumers, as well as offering a boost to the economy? Read this and much more on business and sustainability in the various sectors. Grab your copy on Wednesday, the 31st March 2021. To advertise in this feature, contact 0723 223 266 or email theedge@ke.nationmedia.com. Business Daily.
From State Farm Arena, the 2021 NBA All-Star Game.
When you're able to represent your team, your family, it's not something that I take for granted at all.
You know, who knows if I'm going to have a chance to play against them again. So enjoy the moment. We're going to try to get a win for sure.
I just love the fact that HBCUs are being highlighted.
Each quarter is like its own game, with $150,000 going to charity and then $300,000 going to the charity of the winning team.
I ain't been this close to this ever. Nice play. Here's Curry. Oh, beautiful pass. And the Joker with the bucket.
How we loose? Get the legs moving.
2-on-1. LeBron with the reverse. Here's Curry, 3.
What would you do if you could do anything?
What are people going to say?
People like me don't win competitions like that.
In those days, parents thought a girl was better off in the kitchen than in the classroom.
I made a promise when Mama was dying.
Even if it means you're gonna get sick.
What choice do I have?
I'm looking for a man who can take responsibility for his actions.
The future belongs to those who build on what's come before.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and today we are talking about parenting, especially now that our children are back home with us for the school holidays. And helping us understand this conversation, we still have Dr. Rose Misati, who is a parenting and relationship coach, Lizzie Wanyoike, who is an educationist, and you also know her as a proprietor of NIBS College, Shalom Munyiri, who is a family life coach, and of course Chris Otieno, who is a facilitator, the Boys to Men program, which is run by Transform Nations. Thank you all for joining me on this conversation. And remember, our question of the day to you is, how do you intend to keep your children busy during this school holiday season? Hashtag new normal. And you can also reach us using the phone numbers at the bottom of your screen. Ismail Mohammed says, it is very tough. Kijana wangu ni kula kama muluya all the time, face with tears of joy. All right, we hear you. Sarah Wangoi Baida says, spending enough time with your children is the best way to parent them. They even bring up the discussion for them, so you flow so well. Sarah, we hear you. Ono Brakpeya says, how did our parents manage without these tutorials? Pressure to provide and stiff competition in the shrinking economy leaves little time for anything else. We hear you, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. And we have a phone call here from Bernard, who is calling from Nakuru. Bernard, what's your question or comment? Bernard? Do we have Bernard on the line? Okay, we seem to have lost him, but he will reconnect with us in a moment. Dr. Misati, before we went to break, we were talking about how do we teach our young minds, our boys and girls, how to respect each other. The last week has been, how do we teach our boys to respect the men? And Chris has talked about the importance of understanding, the same for the boys. But also there is a girl in this whole conversation. How do you help her or prepare her for a world that perhaps might not respect her rights, but she needs to walk in this same world?
Thank you so much. That's a very important question. Before I get there, I want to comment on something that you had raised earlier on, that our parents used to threaten. Actually, the sex education most of us received was semi-threats. This has been a challenge because parents now parent with shame when it comes to sexuality. And a lot of us struggle in that area of sex within marriage because of the fear that was instilled in us. With all due respect and honor to our parents, they did the best that they could with what they knew. But now we know better, so we can do better. It's education, not threatening. Fear can keep you for so long, but fear is not a good motivator for behavior change. So we are talking about giving balanced, healthy, factual information to our children so that they make a rational decision. So it necessarily doesn't mean we turned out well, but it means we can learn lessons and we can do better. I just thought I need to bring that out.
Important.
Now, let me talk about the issue of there is a girl involved. I always teach the girls when I'm empowering them, including my own daughter, I empower them not to objectify themselves. That even as you present yourself, you're not presenting yourself as somebody who is needy, who has needs that need to be met, but also you have a desire. If you have a desire and you don't like somebody, let me just say that you don't like somebody and they don't like you. You don't have to go for someone simply because what will people say, what will people think, how will he feel? But it's about you making an informed choice. So we need to prepare them by giving the information, equipping them with skills. First of all, to know that they are complete, even without getting this person, you know, to probably be in a relationship with them. And also to model the way we present ourselves, the choices that we make, and as mothers also, if we continue remaining, for example, in abusive situations, whereby we are afraid to say no, what we are modeling to our children is that as a girl child, you don't have a say. I know we live in a patriarchal society, but then we need to say that there should be informed consent. Children learn with their eyes, not with their mouths. So we could be saying something, but what we are doing speaks so loud, they can't hear what we are saying. So the way we present ourselves, the way we model, needs to be in sync with the information that we are passing to them. Thank you.
All right. And at this point, I understand Bernard is back with us from Nakuru. Bernard, what's your question or comment? Bernard?
Yeah.
What is your question or comment?
This is the time of pandemic.
We seem to have a feedback on your line. Please reduce the volume on your television.
Yes, I'm on live.
We are getting feedback from your television. Please reduce the volume of your television before you make that call to us. But hey, still taking your calls this morning. And let me throw this to Shalom. We are bringing up children in a very interesting world. Things have changed, how people even view relationships, put the value of the same. And the question is, how do you prepare this young mind to value themselves and to also be able to take responsibility for their actions?
Wow, it starts at home. I mean, I think we are all in agreement that all of this is starting at home.
Yeah.
And as Dr. Misati has said, they learn more by watching than by hearing what it is that we are saying. So it's not enough to tell a girl to respect herself if you are not respecting her and you are not respecting yourself, let's say in the case of the mother or even older female role models. So when, for instance, when you treat your house help with disrespect, the girl is watching. If you have a young daughter, she's watching how you're treating this particular house help. And so when you're away, this is the other female they're identifying with. And they start getting subliminal messaging about what's okay and not okay to tell a child, to tell a female. When they're in the playground and let's say they get into some sort of fight, as children always will. When teachers come and try to separate them and then they say boys are, he's just being a boy, you're excusing behavior from early on. So this girl sort of grows up seeing society make excuses for boys' bad behavior. So as much as you will tell her, respect yourself, you stand for something, you're worth it, you're whatever, all the other messaging coming her way through action is showing her that she actually doesn't matter. The boy matters more. This is how to talk to women, you know. And when you're talking, like, let's say now the example I gave of the house help, she's looking and thinking, then I can never serve somebody. Because when you serve people, it's disrespectful. So by the time she's growing up, even her attitude towards service, her attitude towards feminine roles for that matter, end up becoming distorted. And I'm not trying to equate being a house girl to a feminine role. I'm trying to just show that that's one of the places where girls are modeling or getting messaging about how females are treated. Because disrespect is starting at home without us realizing that we are showing disrespect to our children. So I would say that you need to be so careful about what is around you and what you are demonstrating, and forget too much about exactly what you're saying with your mouth. If as a mother you don't respect yourself, you wear this old thing, you're just looking funny and frumpy, that's what you're showing your daughter that she should be like. You tell her you need to be careful about what you eat. You need to be, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to guide your daughter. You need to talk to men this way. Then you go and talk to your husband or your spouse or your partner in a different way. You are driving around with a girl and you're telling her women are supposed to respect themselves. And then you're the one cussing out the matatu drivers. There's a lot of mixed messaging that comes our way that makes us show our girls a confused image of who they should be. And so what happens is once the confusion starts at home, they go out and start looking for proper answers somewhere. Now they get into high school and they're being taught how to be the full diva, you know, and that starts in primary school where they're doing the mean girls thing and being the full diva. And so then after that, they get into high school and there's a way they need to package themselves. When they're in boarding school, if they want to get their parents have not given them pocket money, for instance, or maybe the school doesn't allow it, they're taught how to use their body to get money from the boys in boys' schools during funkies. And so the messaging the girl is getting through life becomes so distorted that by the time her values are trying to tell her she should say no to this, she actually doesn't even know why she should be saying no. So back to the beginning, let's teach them by showing them what self-respect looks like. And they'll be able to survive that later on.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. And we have Stephen from Nandi on the line. What is your question or comment? Stephen?
All right, I would like to make some few comments. With regards to how we rent back our homes, especially our own rural homes.
Go ahead.
We need to inculcate a lot of awareness in our children. And I happen to have that student school. And the problem with them is down to no touch with their mother. And I would like to...
Oh, wow. Sorry, we seem to be having an issue with our calls today, but remember that hashtag is the new normal, even as you chime in into this conversation. And Lizzie, you do a lot of mentorship, especially with the young minds, and as you prepare them for the world that you're launching them to. And as Shalom is saying, there seems to be a lot of mixed messaging. So these children come, they're empowered with education, they're empowered to go out there and make something of themselves and actually self-actualize. But then again, you start seeing certain tendencies that were not there before. How do we handle this?
Yeah, it is still a bit difficult, but we have to keep on talking to them despite everything. Once, when I'm talking to them, I tell them the most important thing this time in life is to complete your education, to move all up to the level you are supposed to move, without breaking because there will be very many temptations around. So you have to be focused. Why were you brought here and money paid for you? It's not just a holiday. I tell them, here, this is not a holiday. This is a place whereby you are now building your future. Whatever happens here will really matter in what you do next. If you fail, then you will maybe be able to know you have failed, and we always have some remedies for that. But once you get to know, you are encouraged, because this is where you want to be what you want to be. You want to take the career you want to do. And I tell them, finish your college, and then the next level is to get a job. When you get a job, as a woman, you empower yourself. As a man, you empower yourself too. Because it can be very miserable for you as a husband, and you cannot support your family. Your wife will do it for you at a price. So make sure that by the time you come here, you are empowered. And the next thing is getting the job. When you get that job, make sure that this is where you are now trying to save for your next most important part of your life, and that is marriage. Because we are all heading to marriage. You have come all the way from primary school to high school to college. Then what next? The next stage is now you have matured enough to get married and start a family. Then we touch a bit on how you want your family to be. Because some of these, you can tell, their parenting was very poor, right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So we also talk about parenting towards the end of the semester, of their course. Mm-hmm. We call them when they're exiting. At that time now, we are mentioning about your behavior at work. Your behavior at work. Then your behavior when you get married. Because you may get counseling, especially if you are going through a church wedding, but most of them will not go through the church wedding. Most of them is traditional or just come and stay. So this is a stage whereby you can break your life or build it. Mm-hmm. Because it is the end of your education. Of course, education can be continued on a different line, but this is the training you came because this is your passion, this is what you wanted to do so that you can get the job that you wanted. Mm-hmm. Then after that, what else is there? Just get married, because everybody wants to get married. And then within this time, you are also learning about the men, their behavior. Look around and see without commenting. What type of husband, if I was to get a husband from here this time, what kind of guy would I want? There are those who are in drugs. There are those ones who are very serious in class. There are those ones who are always who are sports people. They are always playing basketball. They are doing this. There are those ones who are in debating club. There are those ones who are doing that. In fact, it's such an opportunity for you to get to know men are so different. For guys, I tell them, what type of a wife do you want? Just look around and don't propose. I'm not telling you to go there and propose. But you are going to have a family. Mm-hmm. You're going to have what type of a wife do you want? Do you want a wife who drinks? Do you want a wife who smokes? Do you want a wife who will not take care of your kids? Because remember, when babies are born, they're at the mercy of their mom. Yeah. Can you now try to identify here? It's a learning institution. You don't just come here to learn this or that. You are learning even the way you want to move once you get away from there. Because you have all the samples there, bad mm-hmm. ones and good ones. Okay. So with this way, we prepare them to face the world. Those ones who listen to us, they hear. Those ones who don't want to hear. There's nothing we can do. We cannot cover 100%. Mm-hmm. But it's the most interesting part of my training. Okay. I have taught in high school, but the college life is most interesting because you are molding parents and workers.
All right. And clearly the intricacies of the same are quite vast. And you touched on something, and I think we all have touched on it in a different way, discipline. Dr. Misati, you said some of us grew up with near-death experiences, and of course, threats was the order of the day. Let's go to discipline, and perhaps this story would give us an idea of what we would like to address at this point. Back in February, education experts and stakeholders came to the conclusion that corporal punishment is not the answer to the unrest seen in schools. You remember we had a wave of unrest? Now, this came after they held a consultative workshop to deliberate on the increasing cases of arson in schools at the time. They instead called for the creation of special schools for unruly students. Dr. Misati. Spare the rod and spoil the child. But then again, today we say it is because of how we were brought up that we are seeing some of the dynamics of relationships and parenting today that are not very good for our children. How do you draw the line?
So the purpose of discipline is to train a child so that they can govern themselves in a well-regulated society. So communication, extravagant communication. The rod has been misused many times. I subscribe to the Bible teaching of, raising a child using discipline in terms of corporal punishment by the parent, not anybody else. Unfortunately, many times, parents use the rod as a way of unleashing their anger on the child. If the parent is emotionally healed, and if the parent can talk to the child and use the rod again within a certain age, research shows that 90% of a child's character is formed by the time they are 7 years. So between that time, ideally, they are spending more time at home with loving caregivers. So discipline for a child is communication, and if the rod needs to be used, not beating, like you're beating a snake, but having talked to the child, made them understood why we are disciplining them in this manner, and when the parent is not angry. If by the time the parent is disciplining the child using a rod, they're angry, they have missed the point. And that only damages the child. Now, as a general guide, if by the time a child is 8, 9, 10 years, there is still a need to use the cane, there is a fundamental issue that needs to be sorted. A lot of children who engage in deviant behavior, they are children who are struggling. They are struggling with a difficult childhood, and so the solution is not to beat that child. The solution is to talk to that child, find out, professionally, through counseling, what the child is struggling with. A lot of children have been emotionally damaged, emotionally broken by beating. Yesterday, I was reading about the murder of the 35th president of the United States of America, John F. Kennedy. And the gentleman who assassinated him at 24 years, Lee Harvey Oswald, had a very challenging childhood. The father died 2 days before he was delivered. The father died of a heart attack. The mother was very busy. She would go to work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., leave him on his own. This child struggled through school. He went through 22 schools. He struggled. At work, he struggled. And all this time when he's struggling, he's sent away. He's beaten. He's mishandled. In fact, the mother is described as a self-involved and conflicted mother. That was the way this child was raised. And eventually you see what he caused. So for me, I would say when it comes to corporal punishment, it is the responsibility of the parent, I believe, not outsiders. And again, within the confines of having talked to this child and understood what they're struggling with. So we don't use corporal punishment on childishness, but we use it on willful disobedience. Again, those are my values. Willful disobedience. For example, if a child poured milk or broke a glass, you don't beat them because that is childishness. But if you have communicated, you have set clearly the consequences, and the child has willfully disobeyed, they need to be made to understand that not because I'm perfect, but because God has given me authority over you, I'm going to use to inflict pain, because I love you and I don't want you to continue doing this. All in view of preparing this child for a world that exists, not a world that doesn't exist, because in the real world, choices have consequences. I know people feel differently. There's a thinking around corporal punishment teaches a child that, violence and anger can solve problems. And that's why I said it only needs to be used by a parent who is not angry at that point. And you realize if you're using it and you're not angry, By the way, ever since I began practicing that, hardly have I had a need to spank. Yes.
Interesting. Now, we talked about those stakeholders who sat down and said corporal punishment is not the answer, and this is what they had to say.
Create alternative schools for children who, even after all efforts by the teachers and parents, don't comply with the school rules. To transition so that the incidents of unrest don't subvert the official policy of free and compulsory basic education. These schools should be structured in such a way that the character formation will be a major part of the curriculum, even if it means that such children take longer to cover the normal curriculum.
We are trying to teach children as they grow up that violence does not solve any problem. And caning is telling them that if someone upsets you very much, you can vent out on them with violence. And so we think that is not the way to go.
And I think they actually are agreeing with what Dr. Misati is saying. Let me hear from Chris, especially when it comes to the boy child and they are bringing of the same. They say, kijana kama haski lazima kiboko utumie. But then again, these same boys say that they do not have a parent who listens, who hears them, hence why they fall back on their peers and find themselves in deviant behavior because of the need to be accepted. How do you navigate this?
Thank you so much. It is very important to know the nexus, or to come to know the nexus between behavior, parental guidance, and the repercussions of a child's behavior. Now, in Transformed Nations, we recognize that home is the best mentorship school. And of course, we go right ahead to try and mentor the parents, both male and female, around how to bring up a child. For example, it is important for a man to mentor to a child, a boy child. What are the responsibilities, or what are the roles of a man in the house, all right? And this needs to be modeled and modeled pretty clearly. And the same thing goes to the mother. What are these roles of a woman in a house? That is being a queen, a nurturer, a companion, and a sister, right? And we remember that these children will learn, their behavior will be influenced by what they observe, the facial expressions that they read, what they watch us do, and the language that we use around the house. So we start our boy normal growth program and girl normal growth program by mentoring their parents. For example, when we talk about the roles of a man needs to come out in the house as the king, right? And king here is basically providing leadership, and the characters of prime minister here is integrity and being selfless, right? He also needs to come out as a mentor, where you create time to speak to the people, to the boys and the girls, and even to the woman in the house. Here you model and you coach. So modeling here, you model the right behaviors of a man, and you coach the right behaviors of a man, yeah, which can be either taught, coached, or taught to these children, right? The characteristics of a mentor and an elder is to be authentic and to be a very good communicator. So we communicate and we authenticize what we talk to these children in terms of right character, so that they can see that this is the path that I need to follow for me to play the roles of a man right. In terms of, the next is a warrior. What is the role of a man in the house around being a warrior? Is to protect and to preserve, right? So we must model to our children how to preserve the context of masculinity. We must model and teach our children how to protect what is around them. And also being a friend is to comment and share. So when we model these things, we are one way or the other trying to bring into our children the right ways of learning. The language used at home, they will learn from that language. So that when they go out there to the teachers or to the world, they are occasioned to using the right language in that kind of a presence. When they go out to the world, they have observed how we behave as men, how we behave as their mothers, and how we behave as a family. That too will be taken out there in terms of determining their behaviors. When we express ourselves, one of the ladies spoke very clearly and very well, and I really was impressed on how you speak to house help in the house and how the boys and the girls in the house speak out that, because like we say, home is the best mentorship place, right? You have to use or model the right facial expression so that they see when I am around this kind of people, these are the kind of behaviors, the expression, the language that I've got to use for them to come to a point of appreciating that I myself have been brought up right, or I am a good person from where I stand. So I believe when we look at this nexus and work it very right at home, and then we release these children to go out into the world, for example, in school, having seen what has been molded to them, I believe there will be an influence in their behavior. But when we show this negatively, you'll find that children respond a lot to what is around them. If, for example, they lose somebody in the house and we don't speak to them right? When they go out there, they will show anger. And that anger will be disruption in the normal out. And that has a lot of influence around their behaviors and wanting to punish that kind of a behavior. So
briefly comment on how to discipline the boy child without going overboard.
I'd basically say is influence from home, right? And like it means we take it procedurally, one step at a time. Let us speak to them first time. If they don't get that right, advance that, right? Adopt corrective actions, for example, depriving certain rights. And if that does not go right, then punish.
Okay, and punish, we mean corporal punishment?
Not corporal punishment has to be defined to each and every parent. But what I am saying, or what we say, is that corporal punishment is not acceptable. But when a child goes completely overboard, then it must be adopted. But it must be adopted from a point of teaching. I am doing this because I love you, and I am doing this to correct 1, 2, 3, which will be counter effect in your future.
Okay, now we take another short break here on Your World, and when we come back, we continue with this conversation on parenting, and we're still asking that question: how do you intend to keep your children busy during this holiday season? And that's one of the issues we'll be also delving into. How do you intend to keep your children busy? LWO says young adults are curious about sex because they didn't get proper sex education while in primary or secondary schools. We touched on that. Thank you. We have Okinyo who says take them to the village, wajifundishe ku survive. In the village, they will know that there is still life without internet rather, no schedule for meals. You eat when it's ready, no running water. You have to get your own water for use, no time to rest in the village. There is a lot of work. Okinyo, we hear you. Another here, Madao Temakol, says we were taught not to have sex when we were young, but we were not told when the appropriate time is. We have married people who don't have sex because they still think it's immoral within marriage. I tell you, this is a conversation for another day, but yes, this has come up quite a lot. When we come back, how do we keep these young minds busy now that they're home with us? And if one of them is actually the gadget culture, which is here with us and we cannot run away from it, how do we ensure that we actually shepherd them around these parameters? We'll be right back.
Family is working together today. It is creating opportunities for a lifetime of happiness. The future is bright because you can always bank on family. Family Bank, with you for life.
We have a tradition, a celebration of culture, where one community meets another. On this table, we present the best of the best. And for those that dare to go the extra mile, the ones that try something new, to them, we reserve a seat at the table. Introducing Kikoman, for taste and tradition.
Showcase your everyday home cooking using Kikkoman soy sauce. Buy yourself Kikkoman soy sauce today, cook with it, and share a video demonstrating on how you cooked with Kikkoman soy sauce for a chance to have your video featured on NTV this Friday during the Pishi Home Chef Show at 11 a.m. You should share your video on the Pishi Instagram page, Pishi254, or Pishi Facebook page, Pishi254, with the hashtag Pishi Home Chef, and master Kikkoman Facebook page, Kikkoman East Africa. Gift hand.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
It is your world. Thank you for joining us as we talk about parenting, and especially revisiting this conversation now that our kids are at home. And it is important to understand how to shepherd them, especially now that the dynamics of parenting are changing within this pandemic. And speaking of which, this morning's episode of Your Voice saw Brian Mushiri sit with football technician and IT guru Frank Ouna on what our children can do using computers now that they are at home for an unspecified amount of time.
My name's Frank Ouna, and I'm one of the 4 directors of the biggest holding company is Sambamat Limited, but below it you've got a few other companies. Of interest today is Samba Technologies Limited, which is a technology company offering software solutions to the industries or to companies in Kenya at large and outside of Kenya. And we also teach kids and teens from 6 to 18 years, basically introduction to IT, focusing on coding or programming. And we also teach animations. And we also teach, though it's not very popular with Kenyan parents, we teach DJing and VJing. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm one of those people who are privileged to be blessed with the 2 careers in life. By education, first degree, second degree, I did IT. Cleared my first degree in 2002, and I worked for a few companies, Intel, Citibank, some South African company called Cybrin. All of them, I was in the IT departments, offering software solutions, support at times and all that. And briefly for Microsoft, and then I left, and I ventured back into my primary passion, which was football. But I never forsook IT. I've always had IT in the background. We've always had this company running in the background with the other directors doing the job. I was always there behind the scenes and all that. So probably I need now to blow this trumpet more than the football trumpet. The plan, and we've done it before, we are on our 3rd year. although technically on our second year with this program, because last year was largely wasted. But it gave us an opportunity also to think outside the box and go online with this program. Previously, this program was being done physically, so we would have kids coming up to a rented facility, a school in and around Karen, and they come in the morning probably for 3-4 hours, sit down with them, take them through these boot camps and all that, but now we've gone online. So what we do is we divide these kids and teens into 3 age groups. The starting age group is 6 to 10 years. Then we've got 11 to 14 years. Then we've got 15 to 18 years. Now for the 6 to 10 year olds, we introduce them to coding using block programming. 11 to 14 years, we move them to web development. And the basic language for web development is HTML, very basic. So after that, then the last age group, 15 to 18 years, we focus on 2 main areas. We introduce them to mobile apps development using Java, focusing on Android. We really don't go deep as such. It's just an appreciation. Well, in the first age group, they'll drag drop, they'll create their own programs of animation, they'll run them, they will see them. And kids are working with kids for 3 years now. They are what in German they call grenzenlos. They are without borders. You can't really govern them once they start learning something. Outside those class hours, the kids should be supervised. Otherwise, during the hours, then we basically teach what we are supposed to teach. I can't really control what the kid will be doing. Probably they might turn off the camera and all that and do their own naughty things on the internet. Well, these kids also have their own phones, and they say in their own rooms, their own phones, they can access websites and access all manner of naughty things on the website. But we really encourage parents, especially with the very young learners, 6 to 10 years, from time to time to be checking on them as they're online, what they're doing behind the scene, because it's easy for them to keep the camera on, but basically they're running something else. It's very possible. We spot the talent right from the early age. I mean, we have students on board that we really struggle with the concepts. Then we have got most of them getting the concept very quickly. Then you've got those very few who are very excellent and very talented. So we always involve the parents. After we identify such a talent, we involve the parents and let them know that we need to nurture this talent because we've tapped it, we've not known it. Coding and animation really fosters creativity and persistence in our kids, because when developing a solution, you always come across bugs and errors and all that. So you develop persistence and resilience. Then it improves their whole view of the world into a problem and a solution paradigm or perspective, where they know every other problem can be solved by dividing the problem into smaller problems. Solve the smaller problems, would have solved the bigger problem and all that. So it is not a technical thing per se. It helps even as a pedagogical methodology to teach our kids life skills and how to solve issues in their general life. So it may come across as a technology thing, but in general, creativity, persistency, resilience, all that will come into play once kids start playing around with codes and animations from very young age.
The reality we are living in, and we need to be cognizant that as parents we need to shepherd our children in these times. And speaking of which, Shalom, you are passionate about this subject as far as how to parent or give guidance to our children even as they use these gadgets and are introduced into the digital world. How should we maneuver this?
It's tough because this is one of the places where you will not be able to teach without being it. You won't be able to tell your child to get off the phone without you yourself getting off the phone. And when we are talking with the children in the different forums where we have conversations with them, they say that their parents are actually more addicted to gadgets than they are. So parents, we sort of have this excuse that we are coming up with now that we need to work from home and therefore we are working. So we're on the phone tab, we have 3-4 gadgets, the laptop open, doing work, and we are neglecting our children and choosing the gadgets over them. So again, monkey see, monkey do. The minute they have an opportunity to choose their gadgets over us, of course they're going to choose their gadgets over us. So we are demonstrating, and I would say it starts from the get-go. When a mother is breastfeeding, any mother breastfeeding her kid now in this day and age has the phone on one hand and the kid on the boob on the other hand. And so this kid knows the black screen from the beginning. You know, it's something they're already picturing and they're learning how to use. By the time they are 2, they can swipe, they can override your password, you know, especially if it's one of these patterns. They already know how to do it. So what do? I'd say leverage on technology. Make technology a fun part of your household. Go online and look for things that you can do and download them. You know, download anything from recipes to puzzles to worksheets to games that you can play, ideas. Just download stuff and then take that activity offline. So that you're showing them that this gadget still has some use. You know, play games. There are games that are online that are actually healthy to play. Play with them, so that the phone and that gadget is not necessarily a babysitting toy. It becomes something that we have to accept will be part of our life, and we start demonstrating how to use it in a healthy way. You know, so that we are also showing them the discipline that they can have around the gadgets. One of the things that I've done and I've seen work, it has worked for me and my children, it has worked in very many homes that have tried this, provide alternatives. As opposed to saying putting down the phone. Okay, so you want them to put down the phone and do what? You know, surround your kids with books, with games, with extra activities, surround them with friends. And I'm not saying necessarily crowds, because now with this social distancing thing, the lockdown is a reality.
Yeah.
It's give them social skills where they can actually do something with a friend and like people that they're facing as opposed to people that they're just seeing on screen. Surround them with books, have games, board games, puzzles, card games. Be there when they're playing, play with them. So you're teaching them human interaction. Because as long as we're not giving that to them, then no, they will prefer the gadget.
Interesting. And Lizzie, now you are dealing with adolescents again and young adults who have their phone, they have the internet, they can do whatever they want to do on it. How do you teach them self-regulation, so to speak?
Well, at the college level, it's a bit difficult to change their attitude because they have gone through high school, they have gone through so many things that when they are on their own, maybe they're in the hostels or when they have their free time, they will still have to go through that. But we keep on advising them, you know, on the dangers of such sites that they visit, so much so. And also with the young ones, you see, for me, I do parenting. Parenting is, I talk to parents, young parents and then mature parents. And I have had very many serious encounters with the kids. There's a day when a young girl went and shared with her uncle that the mother works, both of them work. They are not earning high salaries and they have to work. One of them works in a place where he has to go physically. And this other one has sells, you know, is a vegetable seller and such things. So both of them in the morning, they cook for them and they go to work. And this is a girl of 13 years and a boy of 16 years. So they are left in the house. Then this girl reported that whenever they go, the boy disappears, and they have been given instructions. They have even been given work. If this housework, they do it in 1 hour. So they are left with so much work. So now the boy just goes away, And then, of course, he comes in the evening. I mean, just before the parents come in, he comes in the evening, either drunk or with the red eyes. And the small girl noticed that my brother is on drugs. So she approached the parents, the uncle, and then the uncle we had to call the parents. So what we advise the parents is they have to do better. Both of them have to go to work if they have to, but they have to devise ways of keeping these kids busy. Because they have smartphones. One of them has, the other one doesn't have, so they share that. But when this young man goes, he goes to another group of young men who have the smartphones and they have all the access to everything, because there are some parents that are quite, they don't care. You know, some parents think these are grown-ups, you know, and they're working and they're frustrated with their own ways and in their own ways, and they move on. But I found that case to be very serious, because when we sat down with the parents, they were kind of shocked. They didn't know that the boy was in drugs. And the one who is reporting is their young girl, who is now, she must be a very bright young lady. So these things are happening from the bottom. So you have to talk to parents. When parents come to me, I try to talk to them, and we find ways of how we can maneuver this, because not everybody is staying at home, but the kids compulsory, they're at home. So that one, and it's just an example of so many others that are happening. And we would want the parents out there at least to get to know, just maybe lunchtime, rush home and see what is happening. It doesn't matter the money. Money here is not, should not be an issue. Rush home and see they are there, they have done their work, they are doing something meaningful. But when you go there from 6, and you come back at 5:30 or 7, so many of them are getting to drugs. Even those kids in high school who have never, ever been involved in drugs, they are being used that way.
Okay, and that is such a pertinent issue here, Dr. Misati. We are busy trying to eke a living because the reality calls for the same. But how do we do this but ensure we still parent our children?
Thank you so much. That's a very pertinent question, because we are coming from a generation where all we knew is that the road, we were beaten. But I want to say that probably for most of us, or some of us, I think, our parents perhaps were available. And that is to say that without emotional connection, discipline will not work. If the parent is not lovingly, empathetically connected to the child, the discipline only works to make the child, to drive the child away. So they get to teenage and the parent is wondering, the child is not talking to me, come we talk. And the child is looking at you like, get lost. Where have you been? You know, so it's important for parents to take time intentionally and deliberately to connect with their children. Work, yes, we need to work, we need to provide. But certain decisions need to be made because there's a time and a season for everything. Before teenage, physical presence is important. We can't tell a child, I love you, and we are away for 14 hours a day. For them, they interpret love as time spent. So it may be helpful to say no to certain things, maybe to certain opportunities to advance in education when they are young, but as they grow older, you realize then they don't need physical presence so much because you have already set the foundation and you're emotionally connected. So whatever time you spend together, it's going to be fruitful because you have the foundation. So get to know yourself, get to know your priorities. And above everything, if you realize you're struggling, it's important to acknowledge that nobody is a master of everything. Equip yourself. A show like this, seminars, read a book, listen to, a program, talk to parents who have gone ahead of you and get to learn how to do some of these things. Many times I feel like the parents are bashed so much, that you're working, you're making money, and yet we must work, we must make the money. But it's important to know that there's a time and a season for everything. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It is your responsibility as a parent to identify your healthy village. It is not just anybody, and it doesn't have to be relatives, because again, we live, in the city, but you need to identify your village. Is it a healthy neighborhood? Is it your church? Is it a few friends? that you can say, please take my children for swimming, take them for something to play football today because I need to go somewhere. So it's critically important. We can't do it alone, but with support, we can be able to navigate through the various stages of our children's development.
All right, even as we wrap up this conversation, and I'll take this as your parting shots, and I'll start off with you, Chris. It has been said, especially now that you are raising boys to be men, that the male figures in the home are not there. So who is raising these men and showing them how to be men?
Thank you so much. We have a program running now at Transform Nations, and this is Intentional Dads and Money Now program. We teach them, or we share with them life experiences on what is it that is really required for you as a dad, what are the responsibilities, and what are these roles of a man that is required of each and every man. Right? So we do that, and we do that so passionately. We've covered so many people around this country, and we have lots of targets, 1 million persons in the next 1 year. And we hope that our message will go out very clearly, and that this will be shared by the people we share this information with, and they will cascade this down into their families to ensure that we bring out the right kind of men for the next generation.
And as a father yourself, what are you intentional about as you raise your children?
My fatherhood is quite intentional, and my intentionality is discussing the traps of this life with my children. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and I've got a 16-year-old son. My daughter is quite inquisitive, and I'm inquisitive about, for example, she can call me and tell me, Daddy, I'm bored, and that is 9 o'clock in the morning. So what am I supposed to be helping my daughter not to get bored? We discuss with her options. For example, I ensure that every morning I leave her homework, despite not having been given that in school for now in this period of lockdown. On the weekends, I also have time with her, take her out for swimming, and teach her how to share my experience in terms of around swimming. When it comes to my son, I've given myself a target, teach him how to drive a manual car, not an automatic car, a manual car, so that he's really engaged along the whole process. And also, next thing is, I've noted his weakness. He's not quite very good in mathematics. So we are discussing what is the right formula of making mathematics easy, all right? And these things are coming along. So the whole thing for me is presence and providing that information to my children. Yes.
Very well said. Now, Shalom, briefly, what are you intentional about, especially, you said you're a parent, with your kids, especially in the pandemic?
Well, I really do not have children right now. My youngest child is 18. And so my kids are generally young adults. So what we have done is survived this. And probably what I can say is my intention really, the child I'm parenting closest is my nephew, who's about 9 years old. And we've already started the process. We've already started playing puzzles and games. Yesterday, we got a keyboard for him to start, just practicing music. So I'd say what I am doing is a lot more of what worked with me as a parent, and now passing it on to other parents, because I do lots of parenting talks and sessions like this. But probably what I can point out is we worry about addiction without understanding that at the root of addiction is pain, right? And then I read somewhere one time that the opposite of addiction is connection. So one of the ways we can save our children from getting addicted to gadgets, addicted to drugs that were mentioned earlier, negative sexual behavior, is by connecting with them. So my appeal basically is, let's give children a place to belong. Let home be the place where they can land when they're in trouble. Let home be a source of refuge for them. Because even as the powers that be are saying that we need to build centers for boys or for delinquent children to be taken to, that may end up becoming like a juvenile center. I sincerely believe that if you loved children, you can love them out of trouble. And secondly, the role of counseling is also underestimated. And I think Dr. Misati talked about that a lot. Let's seek counseling. Let's have counselors in schools. Let's have counselors supporting families during the lockdown. Counselors should not be quiet with the skills that they have. They should be the ones supporting these families and telling them, okay, what do you do? You're a single mom. You have 3 children. You have to work. What are you going to do? How are we offering that psychosocial support? So as a parent, yes, my children may be grown up. What I'm doing is passing on that knowledge, sharing the skills that I have, and basically supporting other families. So yes, I'm adopting people's children during the lockdown.
All right. And Lizzie, you have been at this for a while. You've taken up other children to mentor, seen a lot of them pass through your hands. Your parting shot, briefly.
I'm having a problem with my communication.
Okay, as we sort that out, Dr. Misati, your parting shot?
Thank you so much. I would like to say that children depend on adults for their physical, social, emotional, and spiritual support or provision. So they're coming now from, as a Christian, I believe that God ordained parents to be leaders of the home and not the children. So even one of the people who said that take the children to the village, you know, they work, they do what? As you take them to the village, go with them so that you can supervise them. Don't dump them in the village because there they will be busy and you remain here. So wherever they go, whatever skills that they are going to learn, be available, be present. And if you realize as a parent, you're challenged in matter skills, equip yourself, because effective parenting is become and then do. You cannot speak of something that you don't have because you cannot ultimately teach or pass that which you don't have. So be equipped, and then you can be able to raise effective children. Thank you.
Very well said. And remember, the question of the day to you was, how do you intend to keep your children busy during this school holiday season? That conversation continues on that hashtag New Normal. And Lizzie, I think you are back with us. So what is your parting shot now that you've had a lot of experience raising children and you can see the dynamics of the same are changing? Briefly.
Communication. It's very, very, very important for parents to be communicating with their sons and daughters from the time they are young, very young. Because when the communication breaks down, some of these young people come to our office and say, oh, my mother does not understand me, my father does not tell me anything. So communication from the very early age is very important. Talk to them, be their friends, be very close to them and talk and let them tell you their issues. Is there something, ask them questions. Is there anything that is disturbing you? Is there something you want to understand from me? That kind of communication will make you very close and very good friends. But it's not discipline all the time. Oh, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want this. You keep quiet, and then you report to the dad, and then the father also tells you to have duty to take care of the girls. So I think communication is the key, right from the word go. Communication even when the baby is breastfeeding. Make sure that you are looking at her, you are giving her some kind of attention so that as he grows up, she'll be very close to you and you'll be able to grow up together and nicely.
All right, Lizzie Wanyoike, educationist and of course the proprietor of NIBS College. We're also joined by Dr. Rose Misati, who is a parenting and relationship coach. She wears many hats. We'll have her back on some of those. Shalom Munyiri, who is a family coach, and of course Chris Otieno, a facilitator of the Boys to Men program, which is part of the Transform Nations. Thank you all for being with us and giving us such a valuable advice, even as we maneuver parenting in this uncertain times. Well, that's it from us here at Your World, but tomorrow we'll be back same time, even as we focus on a health-related matter. Now, Wanaume tafadhali, this is a conversation that is so vital, especially now that men have been said to have a really wanting, health-seeking behavior, and we will be talking about erectile dysfunction. What causes it? What are these underlying conditions that men are dealing with and have this issue that they won't talk about yet? There is an answer at the end of that phone call or that requisition from a doctor. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. See you then.
Presenting the new Harpic bathroom cleaner. Compared to ordinary detergents, its thick formulation gives you superior cleaning and kills 99.9% of germs and viruses all around the bathroom. Blue
for the toilet
and red
for the bathroom.
Get a Pondi by Awiko. Dial star 812 star 802 hash. Skiza Non-Nation.
In the current financial year, the taxpayer is spending about 119 billion shillings in servicing public sector pension liabilities.
Theirs is a pay-as-you-go. It's non-contributory. And that's why you find that the pension crisis as far as the government's employees are concerned.
The government is finally migrating civil servants from a defined benefits pension scheme to a contributory scheme.
In January, we have about 384, which basically we're talking about almost 400,000 civil servants who have moved in.
What does this mean for you as a civil servant?
15%, some would argue, is relatively high if you look at the industry standards, where I think typically we're looking at 7.5% from the employee and 7.5% being matched by the employer.
Join us in the next edition of Business Redefined as we discuss the Public Service Superannuation Scheme.
You did the most horrible thing a person can do to another. Aside from breaking my heart, you destroyed my family.
I didn't know what I was doing. You already know this.
Please, Mark, you're hurting.
And this is nothing compared to what I'm gonna do to you if you keep poisoning your boyfriend's hat. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You are crazy. What are you saying?
Then I'll repeat it. You're both taking advantage because Miguel is gone. And now Luciana's making sure that she keeps the boss to herself.
The only greedy one here is you.
You two are unbelievable.
Along came love in association with Nivea Body Lotions.
Reveal your beautiful this beauty month with amazing discounts of up to 30% off 400 ml Nivea Body Lotions in participating stores near you. Enjoy discounts galore with Nivea. Be you, be beautiful.
From State Farm Arena, the 2021 NBA All-Star Game.
When you're able to represent your team, your family, it's not something that I take for granted at all.
You know, who knows if I'm going to have a chance to play against them again. So enjoy the moment. We're going to try to get a win for sure.
I just love the fact that HBCUs are being highlighted.
Each quarter is like its own game, with $150,000 going to charity and then $300,000 going to the charity of the winning team.
I ain't been this close to this ever. Nice play. Here's Curry. Oh, beautiful pass. And the Joker with the bucket. How we loose? Get the legs moving. 2-on-1. LeBron with the reverse.
Here's Curry, three.
NTV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated GE. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
We clapped our hands and stomped our feet. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho. A rig-a-tick-tick and away we go. Away we go, away we go. A rig-a-tick-tick and away we go. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho.
Hi guys, welcome to G3. My name is Stacey Waweru and we're going to have lots of fun as usual here at today's hike.
Red, red, red.
That was so easy to make, right?
so easy, and we did it together.
This isn't you. Anything I want, I can jump to it, cause I do it like her. I can make it happen like nothing to it, cause I do it like her.
I love watching videos, any kind of video, and it's so much fun because you get to learn, laugh, and have fun, especially when you watch it with your friends. Here's an awesome video. Discovering talents is very fun. No matter what talent it is, as long as you have fun discovering it, it's awesome. Here is Wakilisha, where we get to discover your talents. Lakewood Emerald School presenting a Kanban singing game. Welcome. It's time for Vibe Corner, where we have opinion questions, riddles, and tongue twisters. But we're going to start it off with opinion question, where your answer is not limited and your opinion matters. Here's opinion question.
When I grow up, I want to be a businessman. If I met a businessman, I want to ask them a question. Is it a must you go to school to be a businessman?
When I grow up, I want to be a dancer. I want to ask a question. How did you come with the dance steps?
When I grow up, I want to be a scientist. Today, if I meet a scientist, I want to ask them a question. Why do they use animals as test subjects?
When I grow up, I want to be a singer. When I meet a professional singer today, I will ask them a question. Why did they choose singing out of all the careers?
When I grow up, I want to be a footballer. When I meet a footballer today, I'll ask him how often does he train.
When I grow up, I want to be a tennis player. And if I met Serena Williams, I would ask her whether all she thinks about is tennis.
When I grow up, I want to be a game developer. And if I meet a professional game developer, I would ask him what encouraged him to become a game developer.
When I grow up, I want to be a pilot, and if I find a pilot, I'll ask him or her if they're afraid of heights. It's time for tongue twister, and tongue twisters are very fun, especially when you say them with your parents, your friends, or your family. And it's so much fun, and you end up laughing your lungs out. Here's tongue twister.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred oh God. Fred fed Ted bread. Oh God. Fred fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred Ted bread. Fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred Ted bed. Fred fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bed. Fred Ted bed. Fred fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred fed Ted bread. Fred fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred fed Ted bread.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred Ted bed.
What?
Fred fed Ted bed.
Fred fed Ted bread. Fred Ted bread. Fred fed Ted bread. Riddles are amazing because you get to think out of the box. Here is today's riddle.
I think the answer is a bus. It speaks, it honks. Yeah, God.
I think it's a rabbit because it doesn't hear but or speak.
I think the answer is the brain because it controls us and it uses our ears to hear, but it doesn't choose the brain itself, and it uses our mouth to talk, but it doesn't choose itself.
I think the answer is a phone because it can hear.